So the next frequently asked question is that of how to recode data using SPSS Statistics. So normally when we talk about recoding data, we're referring to changing the values of a variable so that they represent something else. And within SPSS Statistics, there's more than one type of recode that one can run. There's a procedure known as recode into same variables, and a sister procedure of that, which is recode into different variables. The difference between them is simply that recode into same variables overwrites an existing variable, and recode into different variables creates a new version of that variable. And they're both kind of doing the same thing, which is simply you're taking the value codes or the categories of a variable and giving them new codes. So for example, code 3 becomes code 2, or code 5 becomes code 6, or something like that. Automatic recode refers to a very particular procedure designed to turn string codes into numeric codes. That's really specifically what it does. It takes the string codes in alphabetical order and assigns numeric codes to them. And visual binning is again a very specific technique, relatively new, and it's useful to know about. It's actually a way of visualizing a distribution in the form of a histogram and slicing it into ranged categories. So turning a continuous field into a ordinal set of categories. So let's have a look at an example of using recode into different variables, whereby we will regroup the variables, the values within a categorical variable so that they represent something else. So here in SPSS Statistics we have a very simple example that we can use to demonstrate recode into different variables. We have an ID field and we have a single categorical variable with labels, which is, as we clearly see here, marital status. And just to give you an overview of what's contained within that variable, if I click Descriptive Statistics here, you can see that in the output it's broken down into married, divorced, separated, widowed, and never married. Each of these categories, each of these value labels that are being displayed here have their own underlying values, as we can see here. You can see divorced is category 2 and married is category 1, etc., etc. And what we're going to do is we're going to try to change this field, recode it, so that we end up with a simpler version of marital status, which is broken down into people who are married, people who have been previously married, people who are never married, and the two missing cases still left out on their own. So to do that, a good idea is to go to the Variable View tab and to look at the values that have been defined here for these different categories. So you can see that 1 can remain as 1, which is married. Category 2, 3, and 4, these all denote people who have been previously married, so we should group them all together as category 2. And to keep things neat and sequential, that means that never married should become category 3, and the missing category here, should become category 4. So to make that work, we need to come back to the data view and go to transform and do recode into different variables. Notice that recode into same variables is above it. It's an identical procedure virtually, except for the fact that it overwrites the existing variable, and we don't want to do that. We want to create a new version of it. So we'll click on recode into different variables. And as we click on that, we can select our input variable, the thing that we are going to use to create a new variable. We need to specify the name for the new variable, which I'm simply going to call marital2, and give it an appropriate label, which is marital status simplified. We simply change that, click the change button to update it. And then to assign the codes, we can click on old and new values. Now at this point we can say, well, category 1 in the old values side of the dialog is going to be assigned a new value, category 1, except that doesn't make any sense because it's not a new value. So we can leave it out on its own. We don't need to deal with it. Rather, we can say that categories 2, 3, and 4, so 2 through 4, are now going to become category 2. This is the previously married group. Category 5, which is never married, will become category 3. And we can say system or user missing, or we can specify category 6. Depends if you want to include the system missing values in there as well, but there aren't any system missing values, there's only user missing, so we can say system or user missing values will become category 4, and we can say all other values copy old values, which takes care of category 1. So there's different ways in which we can do this basically, but this is how we assign old values new values. So we're taking the old values, we're getting new values, we're adding them each time. It's worth noting also here that we can make output variables that are strings. So if we click continue at that point and click OK, what that's going to do is create a simple variable for us with just 1, 2, 3 and 4 in it, and it makes sense for us then to format that variable correctly. So we double click on it, we can see the label's been attached here, but it doesn't need any decimal places, so we can say okay, let's get rid of these decimal places, make it smaller. There we go, just change the decimal places. We don't really need those. We don't even need a width of 8, we only need a width of 1. Doesn't really make a lot of difference. The marital status is shown here as marital status simplified, the label, and then the values that we can add are 1, which of course remains as married, 2, which we're going to make previously married, 3, never married, and 4 is missing or unknown, so I'm just going to make it unknown so it sticks out. Unknown, and then we assign category, of course, value 4 as our missing value. It's there just to make sure that it's missing. We right click and we on the new field, we say Descriptive Statistics, and here we can see that there's 3 categories, 3 valid categories: married, previously married, never married, and you can see that the 55 cases, 25, 10 and 20 for divorced, separated and widowed have been summed to represent 55 cases in the previously married group, whereas married 174 cases, never married 99 are still retained, and the 2 missing cases, which we've just labeled unknown here, are also identified as missing values. So we've now recoded that variable.